Welcome back to the United Nations marking World Refugee Day yesterday. The agency reporting a record 16.2 million new people were displaced around the world just last year. My next guest is looking to create jobs for those displaced people with the help of a new network of investors. Joining us right now is the co-founder and managing partner of the Alight Fund, John Kluge. He is also one of the creators of the Refugee Investor Network. John, it's great to have you.
It's good to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us. Tell us about this venture, what you're hoping to accomplish, the Alight Fund.
Sure. Well, thanks, Maria, and thank you all for having me today. I think that this is an issue whose time has come. We've been watching the global forced migration crisis over the last several years, and I think we found that the solutions that are oriented towards short-term emergency response are just not sufficient to get the job done. And what we need to do is meet people where they are. 80% of refugees and forcibly displaced people are actually in countries overseas, countries of first asylum. So we think about resettlement here in the U.S. Most folks aren't going to get resettled. Most people aren't going to get home. So if we can find a way to provide them with a job, capital to start a business, they can be meaningful contributors to their communities.
Yeah. Well, like Maria said, it's very interesting, and congratulations on this. But tell our viewing audience how this thing will work. What's the structure? How do you apply? Is there an investment committee? What kind of industries would you be inclined to fund going forward?
That's a good question. I think one is just to say that this is a frontier market. So we're on the sort of ground floor getting off the ground. The Refugee Investment Network was created because there is capital across the returns continuum. So you have impact investors, you have institutional investors, faith-based pension funds that are looking to use their investments to support guest populations and host populations overseas. But despite there being over $1.5 billion already committed on the table, that money isn't moving into these markets yet. So we set up the Refugee Investment Network to help fill in those gaps. So we'll be conducting due diligence, research on these opportunities, structuring deals, building out the deal pipeline, and I think the instruments that people will be using will run the gamut from debt.
And there are certain countries, right? You have prioritization, like Turkey would be at the top of the list, or certain countries.
Well, it's interesting to look at how many people are coming from these various industries. I mean, countries rather. The vast majority of those displaced coming from the Middle East and North Africa. We just had a list of them, 6.3 million just from Syria alone. With that in mind, what are the investments that the network focuses on?
So I'll give you an example. We have 2 members in the Refugee Investment Network right now who are in the process of setting up new funds. One of those, they've got $500 million under assets, or assets under management today, and they're building their 3rd fund, which will be a displaced persons microfinance fund. So last year we worked with Kiva, the crowdfunding platform online, to launch the World Refugee Fund. Since then, Kiva has spent I think they've lent over $5 million to 6,000 refugees in 5 countries. The data that they have from that actually proves that refugee entrepreneurs make better lending customers, have lower default rates than their usual entrepreneur customers. So now there's... Well, I think they are the quintessential extreme entrepreneur. They have gone through hell, endured it, and are rebuilding their lives. So there is maybe a bigger commitment because this is their best chance at hope.
So we're seeing those images of refugees in camps, perhaps, after they've come over, let's say, from Syria into Turkey. Are you finding someone in the camp who has an entrepreneurial bent and then is offering a new service to the people around them, or are they selling something to the larger community in Turkey?
Great question. I think we think about this as market ecosystems. So you have micro entrepreneurs who are starting their small ventures like that in a camp setting or in an urban setting. 80% of refugees today are actually in urban or peri-urban settings, not in camps. We also think about local SMEs. If you're a local entrepreneur, a Jordanian entrepreneur, and you want to scale your business, but you don't have access to capital, we could help provide that financing for you if you consider incorporating refugees or displaced people into your supply chain, for example.
And are most of these service-oriented businesses, or are they product-oriented with export part of the business model?
It's a complete blend. So there are incredible refugee fashion designers. There are people working in textiles. There are folks who are working in ag. I think agriculture is going to be a big market here. I think the point is that we have to start using private capital to support stability in these regions and provide people with a pathway.
Terrific.
So your network will be distributed into these countries that Maria was talking about on the list.
That's right,
yeah.
Exactly. And so we have sort of 3 priority areas that we're focused on. Jordan being one in the sort of Syrian context, Kenya as a sub-Saharan African market, and most recently Mexico.
So you're providing, you're helping them get their job together and then sending them back to where they were or other countries.
Well, I think, almost every single refugee wants to go back home.
Sure.
No one wants to leave their home. The reality, though, is that conflicts today go on for years, and the average time that a refugee is displaced is 17 to 26 years, which I don't think most of us are aware of.
Wow.
And if you're displaced for decades, you're basically a local, right? And so you need a pathway to integrate, and you need a pathway to contribute to your community. And that's what this is all about.
All right, we'll leave it there. John, it's great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Really interesting stuff that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Come back soon and give us the update.
I hope so.
John Kluge joining us there.